If you want to sell on pre-order, you've got to have an amazing product and you've got to think long term.
It's the e-commerce master plan podcast, here to help you solve your marketing problems and grow your e-commerce business. Cutting through the hype to bring you inspiration and advice from the e-commerce sector and beyond. Here's your host, Chloe Thomas.
Hello and welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you for hitting play and choosing to listen to one of our inspiring guests. Regular listeners will know that I love to give a shout out to the listeners who are kind enough to take the time to post a review on the show. And I've got a little shout out to do today. So huge thank you to E the Marketer, nice handle, who put this on Apple Podcasts recently. E the Marketer from the US put, Chloe is a wonderful podcast host and conversationalist. Always learn so much from her and her guests, worth a listen. E the Marketer, I am blushing. Thank you very much for those kind words and for listening. And if you would like a shout out at the start of an episode, then just go to ecmp.info/review to find out how to leave one. Okay, today we have a wonderful conversationalist joining this wonderful conversationalist who you are going to learn a lot from. This is an episode that for me ticks all the boxes of what a good e-commerce master plan episode should be. We have a passionate e-commerce entrepreneur who built one successful business that all went wrong and is now taking all those learnings to build a second very successful e-commerce business. They are building one that ticks the boxes for what you need to be doing if you want an e-commerce business to still be around in 10 years at the moment. So it takes into account all those challenges we're dealing with. He has his eye on the prize from a strategy perspective. He has his eye on the prize from a customer experience perspective, a growth perspective, a profit perspective. He is sharing some very cool marketing tips and team tips as we get towards the end of the episode. And we are talking primarily about the power of the pre-order model because his business is purely pre-orders. I could have chatted to Nick for the rest of the afternoon after we finished recording this, but we had to stop because I had to record this and then I had to go and record another podcast. You are going to love this guest. One minor warning, he uses a lot of minor swear words. I think they add to it, so we're going to try not to beep them, but we're going to double check what we're allowed to get away with on the platforms before we do that. So there may be a couple of beeps, there may be a couple of minor swear words, but it all fits. But I just thought I should let you know in case you don't like that sort of thing in advance. I loved recording this. I love this conversation. I hope you do too. And please listen to the end because you really don't want to miss out on Nick's top tips. Have you yet downloaded our ebook? To celebrate reaching episode 500, we've created an epic e-commerce success-focused ebook for you, packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable, featuring the advice of many past guests alongside industry experts and many of you as well, our listeners. I've checked every single tip and organised the whole thing into sections for you, making it super easy to dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need it. This ebook needs to be sat on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at ecmp.info/ebook. Get 2024's most valuable e-commerce ebook now, ecmp.info/ebook. And now to introduce our special guest. Nick Hussey is the founder and managing director at FRAHM Jacket, a men's clothing brand that exclusively sells by pre-order. Founded in 2018, they did 2.2 million via their Shopify site in 2023. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Chloe. It's very nice if you say I'm special. I'm not, but I'll take it.
You should take it. I think so many people are resistant to the idea of pre-order and get scared at the idea of not having things in stock all the time, that to the fact you've taken your business in but a few years to 7 figures with that exact business model is something that is very special and something our audience really need to know more about. But we'll get into all of that shortly. First of all, though, I'd love to know how you ended up in the world of e-commerce.
I was a relatively early adopter of using websites for stuff and was getting shopping delivered in the 56k modem days of shopping websites, and was always interested in that. And I like innovation and I like change. And then I worked for Getty Images because I wanted a more creative role after having run pubs and bars and restaurants. And Getty Images were really pushing e-commerce from a sort of image licensing point of view, but it was really fascinating seeing what they were doing. This is back about 21, 22 years ago. And it just sort of piqued an interest. And then I went off and did film production. And when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I just wanted to be D2C, and that was in 2010.
So did the idea for the product come first, or the vision come first, or the sales method, or that it was going to be e-commerce? What was the beginning of your coming up with the idea for FRAHM?
FRAHM came about by my failure. So this is all related to how I improved as a business and how I created a strong brand. My ethos in life is total honesty. Nothing is unshared, and having recently been diagnosed as neurodiverse, I understand why I'm like that. And I just think it's a nice way to live. I want to sleep at night knowing that everything I've done there's nothing hidden, there's no secrets, and I've done good things. In 2010, I spent 2 years setting up a cycling business called Vulpine, and that was at film production, and it was commuter cycling, very inclusive brand. We banged a drum about inclusivity in cycling and made commuter cycling clothing, and I discovered that I was very good at, and by the way, that total honesty means I'm allowed to say I'm really good at certain things, because I am, and also that I'm really rubbish at other things, because I am. And I'm really good at building brands and designing products that people really like. And I was rubbish at operations and efficiency and planning, and I didn't take care of those things. And despite a huge amount of press and hype, Vulpine went pop in 2017 after 5 years of running, and people were amazed that we were only 1.3 million revenue, because they thought we were like 25 million revenue because of the amount of hype and talk about us. And I think that probably said a lot about how I had not leveraged the brand of the product into a successful business.
It's a bit like that whole thing of the three-legged stool. A stool won't sit up if you're only great at one of the things that makes the legs, and you have to find ways to fill in those gaps. And it sounds like you learnt that in a very harsh way, but it's that imbalance.
Yeah, the harshest way. So what happened was I was already burnt out. I tried desperately to save the business. I was absolutely devastated by, letting my staff go and letting people down. And I massively imploded and ended up being suicidal. And I now understand that was an obvious thing that was going to happen because I was not taking care of myself at all. But as I recovered, and it's really important for me to talk about my recovery, that's part of our brand, which I'll talk about, can talk about later, is that I realized that even though I'm a quite outwardly emotional, sharing sort of bloke, I didn't tell anyone about this until it was nearly too late. And so that sort of stuck in my head as that's something I'd really like to do something about. The other thing I really wanted to do something about was, as I recovered, I got very frustrated because I really felt like I was an entrepreneur, that I'm very interested in lots of things and I want to make changes and I am ambitious and I want to build a business. And I was very frustrated that I was not doing that anymore. And also mainly because I'd learned so much. I'd messed it up so badly in certain areas and done so well in others. I thought I had the time, because I was a house husband then, to really, really analyze all those bits and pieces and literally write it down and make sense of it. I just went, I've got to do it again, because now I think I know what to do, and I'll definitely do it better. And so actually, FRAHM was built on a financial model first. And the financial model was, I'm not going to raise lots of investment because that was too much pressure, and we went off on tangents because of it, and I could go into lots of reasons why that happened, and it was my fault. I took it, and so I thought, I need to bootstrap this business. How am I going to do that? Okay, so I think I can produce a really good product and I can create an amount of hype around it because I'm not bad at brand marketing. That will create demand. What I've got to do is not meet that demand. And then what I did was I went and consulted for free for a couple of pre-order businesses, got very inspired by Supreme, etc., and anyone who ran out of stock really fast. And then I built a business that didn't give people what they wanted. And then I decided, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell jackets because I love jackets. They're the best things. They're the most expensive things because it's really important we rise to the very top of the market without being luxury. And we protect ourselves from discounting, protect ourselves from the major players. And also because most jackets are crap. And people always say, hey, what's your favorite brand? And I go, the brands that really piss me off, that genuinely sell very expensive things that are tat. And I know the fabrics they use, I know the techniques, I know the stitching, and I know that they're selling people pups. And I don't like that. I want to build things that work and last. And just to finish on that, before I go on too much, is when I was setting this business up, one of my friends, Hugh, is CEO of Friends of the Earth, I said to him, what's the single most important thing? I asked him lots of things like, what else could I do? But, a lot of it's obvious and a lot of it's less obvious. But the one thing that I should do, he just said, just make things that last and can be repaired and loved and passed on. And I went, brilliant, because I want to make the highest quality things I can make. And I think we did. And then we did create hype, and we don't fulfill what people want straight away. We don't let them have it because that protects quality, and that creates hype, and that means that we sell even more. And now, to my amazement, pre-orders not only mean we haven't raised much investment, which we have raised some, that's crowdfunding, but it also means it's created FOMO. Fear of missing out means we've actually grown faster because we don't let people have it for months, if not a year. At the moment, our bestseller is selling 15 months ahead.
Wow. There was so much to unpick from your story there, Nick.
I know, sorry.
No, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it will have I was really excited to have you on the podcast because I think you show that success doesn't necessarily come from following what we assume to be the same route as everybody else. And I think the fact that, you picked apart what went wrong with the first business, and that gave you things you were never going to do again. And then those areas of constraint, we're not going to raise money. It's got to be something that's going to last. It's got to be something I'm proud of, that's brilliant, etc. It's helped you distill a strategy, which, as you say, is delivering beyond your expectations. It's like, how do we run an e-commerce business without taking funding up front to buy the product? Well, let's do pre-orders. And it works.
And just a qualifier for this is I didn't hit the ground running on day one and think, I'm going to build a huge business. I hit the ground running that me and my wife, Emily, said, Nick, you just need to, you're recovering. Just start feeling like you're part of something again. Just get on back on your feet, and maybe you can create an income for the family. And that took the pressure off it. And really, in many ways, it released me. If I think about the times I've struggled in FRAHM, it's because of pressure. It's usually my own pressure on myself. And I was a house husband, which was really good for recovering my mental health because kids are lovely most of the time, but they're also not terribly interesting to talk to, so you don't get overwhelmed. And not when they're tiny anyway. And I bootstrapped from as a house husband, for the first couple of years at home. And that just meant that I really took care of the small things and carefully built the reputation of the brand. And then what happened was in 2021, we grew from 200 grand a year to 1 million just by doing some really obvious things. And then I got investment because I was like, oh, wow, I've got a much better brand than I thought I had. Let's start doing some extra stuff.
And then one of the other things, I'm going to jump back before I forget it, but one of the other things from that first part of your journey was the fact you said, and I don't think that many people would have the foresight to do this. You thought, right, I'm going to do pre-orders. Don't know anything about doing pre-orders, so I'm going to go and do some free consulting for brands that do free orders. Go do an internship, go and work in it. And it's like, if I look back at my career, I really should have worked in an agency before I owned an agency. That would have been a really clever thing to have done. But many don't have the foresight to find a way to do that. Do you think you would have got to where you've got to without having done that?
Hindsight is a wonderful thing. I mean, it's also bullshit. And you'll never really know the truth. But the useful thing about having a breakdown, even though it's extremely painful and dangerous, is that it completely wrecked my ego. And it meant that when I rebuilt myself, this honesty meant that I also had a lot more humility. So instead of going, oh, I'm okay, I'm clever, I'll work it out, I went, you know what? I don't know what it is, so I'm going to find out. And it means that I'm much more receptive to feedback, much more receptive to learning. And I've realized that a lot of the journey that I enjoy is just developing myself and developing my learning. And so I'm just much more open-minded.
So let's talk pre-orders. All the things you've learned about pre-orders and that as a business model, because I think it's a no-brainer business model, but I know I'm massively in the minority on that, and that a lot of brands are really, really scared of even trialing it on one product. What do you want to tell us about pre-order, Nick? Because I know you love beating the drum. So rather than me try and guide you, I'll ask you what do you want to tell us about it?
Well, the first thing I'll say is it's not easy. It's very counterintuitive. It's extremely difficult, I believe, to go backwards into backwards. Notice I said backwards, not forwards, into a pre-order model once you've already established a different model. But I'll tell you why. One of the reasons I did pre-order model. So there's multiple reasons. One was it's going to get me bootstrapped. One was I want to create an exclusive product that I can protect the reputation and the quality and the detail of long term, because the long term is where I'm at, not the short term, not next month's sales. And therefore I mustn't do discounting, because most clothing businesses, most retailers, we all have, because that was my previous business as well, done big discounts to hit targets and lovely, yay, we got sales. Oh dear, our customers are waiting for the next set of discounts. Shit, we can't sell at full price anymore. And look, I've been here. I'm not wagging my finger at people, because that's how you learn. You learn the hard way. You get clobbered by it. Is you buy a load of stock, you sell less and less of it at full price, your margin goes down, you have to get your margin back, otherwise you're going to go pop. So you start eroding quality, and eventually your customers realize that you're not as good as you were and they leave you. And then you're stuffed, and you're boxing yourself into a corner. And in bigger businesses, or very, very ambitious, high growth VC backed businesses, for instance, with the wrong people at the top or the wrong attitudes or the wrong pressures, they're forced to hit targets, which means they're eroding their brand to the point where they're just going to go pop. And there's so many clothing businesses, resellers, sites, massive brands that have gone down recently. And it's essentially because they were thinking short term, not long term, and not building reputation or value or whatever that was going to be. And also because there were too many of them anyway. And hey, look, I'm not so arrogant as to think, FRAHM's great, nothing will ever happen to us. I'm hyper aware, having lost a business, of protecting us. But, there was the protection system, as well as I don't want to be a bastard. I want to make really good stuff. I don't want to make too much. I don't want to burn clothing in skips. Honestly, it made me so unbelievably angry when I heard about Burberry doing that. It makes me sick to my stomach. And I don't want to be one of those people. I want to be one of the people who sleeps at night and goes, I've made a wonderful thing that people genuinely love. And I think we're going to have the same reputation in 3 years' time, because that's good for me and it's good for the customer, which is good for me, which is good for the business. Everyone wins.
So to recap, why pre-order was the bootstrapping, obviously getting the cash in, but protecting the product quality.
Now, shall I say why
Yeah.
why now? So it's really interesting, because outsiders come in. Sometimes we get approaches, people want to invest in the business, or somebody just learns about FRAHM and they go, oh, you've got nice jackets, but I can't have it. What is that all about? Nick, you do know that this is service culture where people can buy something on Amazon the next day and say, yeah, but they can't buy our jackets. And they won't be able to. And I guarantee you, I will fight anyone that they will not be able to buy a jacket like ours on the market. And we have to make sure that's true. Otherwise, it's a lie and we'll get found out and people will ignore us. So that's the other thing. So here's the system. If you want to sell on pre-order, you've got to have an amazing product and you've got to think long term, years. Because you can't just say, hey, buy on pre-order. Because people go, why? Why should I bother? Why don't I just go somewhere else and get it? You can't be a reseller and sell on pre-order. Obviously, you can't sell something cheap you could get an alternative to by pre-order. It's got to be special. It's got to be exclusive. And it's got to be something that somebody will enjoy waiting for and receiving. And really importantly, and this is something that absolutely amazes me to this day, I can remember at the end of 2018, I hadn't had any reviews yet because I hadn't sent any product. And then the first reviews came in, they were really good. And I expected them to be really good, not because I'm an arrogant dick, it's because I just sold to the earliest of the early adopters and they were going to love it. And I also know made a great jacket. But now, 6 years later, our review average is 4.92 and from nearly 4,000 reviews. And the reviews are absolutely wild. And these are from middle-aged blokes who usually are pretty sort of, it's all right. And it's because we exceed expectations. So this is all about very, very careful, deliberate backing up of your promises, building trust, protecting that, and making sure it happens. And that's one of the reasons, for instance, that I've turned down venture capitalist investment, because I'm terrified of stack it high, sell it cheap, and hit the targets, and that all being eroded. And it's wonderful for year one, but 3 years down the line, we're like, oh crap, we're like everyone else now. What do we do?
So Nick, you say it's a slow burn, you've got to have this long-term view, which I totally get. But in quite a short time, especially for a brand in the UK, you've got to a solid 7 figures. And you were telling me before we hit record that you're actually holding the growth back. You are controlling the growth and stopping the business buying faster. So what's the theory behind that? What's the strategy behind not just letting rip?
Growth is not a successful business. Growth is a metric of a business. And growth is often seen as the important thing. A business is a profitable business. A profitable business is a safe business. And that's what we're here to do. Now, what I built with FRAHM, which is a common model, and it's a valid model, is grow your brand and your revenue so that somebody else buys you and takes care of your problems and makes it profitable. But the problem is you've got to make damn sure you can keep raising investment and that you make it really valuable and keep growing really fast. And actually what's really changed as well is that the investment picture is fundamentally different from what it was 5-10 years ago. It's much harder to raise funds. What that means is I want to be self-supporting. I want to be the boss of my future. I don't want to be beholden to anyone. So we need to be self-supporting. How do we do that? Create our own cash. So we were losing money, which is natural for a growth stage business last year. I mean, on average, we've grown 109% over the last 3 years. But last year, we only grew 41%. And that was planned because we wanted to become cash neutral. How do you do that? You become efficient. So you concentrate your efforts, instead of just grabbing sales in inverted commas, it's not quite as easy or simple as that, into what are we spending too much money on? We're actually spending less money on the business than we were last year. We're spending less money on marketing. And that's not because we've lost our ambition. It's not because we can't be bothered. It's because we were wasting that money. Because we've looked at our data more carefully. We've broken everything down, and we've picked the best bits and we discarded the rubbish bits. And that often doesn't happen with high investment growth stage businesses or growth focused businesses, because if you just want to grow, you'll just start throwing around money and finding out what happens. If you get the growth, you go, great, but you're not solving your systemic problems in the business and making it efficient. And what's happening now is that if you want to sell your business, a lot of people who want to buy businesses or invest in businesses want a more holistic business that is able to demonstrate its efficiency and its profitability or potential for, rather than just the rocket ship. And you know what? Rocket ships explode.
Yeah, who wants to be on a rocket ship, quite frankly?
Well, some people love rocket ships, and that's fine. I don't. Not anymore.
Me neither. So Nick, for anyone who's listening, who's going, the picture that Nick paints is a much easier picture than the one I'm currently struggling with. Any advice for them shifting their business to a pre-order or a profit model? What are some key lessons you're happy to share?
Well, and this is the thing, is shifting is very interesting. And I don't have that answer because I haven't done it. I would say if you're going to shift, you're going to take a big risk and you have to back it to the hilt. You can't just dabble. You could maybe, I qualify that, you could dabble with something very, very special. So it depends entirely on what your business is. But we're a consumer brand with a consumer product. And if I was going to test pre-orders, I've got to make something really special and I've got to limit it. So the classic way actually is a limited edition. If you have to prove to a board or investors, whatever, then you could use that. This will become prevalent. And I think the way the pre-order system is going to become more prevalent is that founders will use it. So I unofficially, just trying to be helpful, advise another clothing business and its founder. And he's gone to a pre-order model and he's just starting to see the fruits of that. But he's very early stage. You can do that. And he's setting out a stall. And the main reason he's done that is, frankly, he can't raise investment. And that's a completely valid way to do it. And I have found that this is possibly, it's not the greatest lesson, but one of the many important lessons I've learned in my career is when you don't have money, you get inventive. When you don't have money, you're creative. When you don't have money, you get cleverer because you have to find a solution. And I've seen it time and time again. I don't want 2 million in the bank because I could have taken it by now, because then you just start splattergunning, and splattergunning is dangerous. And instead, we're very, very increasingly careful with our money, but always meted by the fact that we're ambitious, and always meted by the fact that we need to grow and we need to become more and more valuable, because I want to sell this business for a bunch of money because I want to have a tree house in the middle of nowhere. And I'm not going to do that by not growing. So it's a balance. And balance is hard.
E-commerce Master Plan is supported by some of the greatest companies in the e-commerce sector. Here's a reminder of who they are.
Have you yet downloaded our ebook? To celebrate reaching episode 500, we've created an epic e-commerce success-focused ebook for you, packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable, featuring the advice of many, many past guests alongside industry experts and many of you as well, our listeners. I've checked every single tip and organised the whole thing into sections for you, making it super easy to dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need it. This ebook needs to be sat on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at ecmp.info/ebook. Get 2024's most valuable e-commerce ebook now, ecmp.info/ebook.
It's time for the top tips round.
Okay, Nick, I love this section because it gives me and our listeners some really quick ideas for taking our businesses to the next level. Not that you haven't given us that already, but Nick, are you ready for the top tips?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, here we go. The book top tip. If everyone listening to this podcast agreed to take Friday off and read a book to make their business better, which book would you recommend?
I'm going to do a very me thing. I'm going to give you two answers. The obvious answer, the clear answer, is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland, who I had the pleasure of meeting a few weeks ago. It's all about being counterintuitive, remembering that if you're a consumer brand, you're dealing with subconscious psychology, and it's very different from logic. And both are valid, but often logic steers us in very strange directions. Pre-orders are illogical. No, you can't have the thing you want, but that has turned us into a better business. Dare to be illogical, dare to be creative. And that's very useful because a lot of people don't think like that, but you have to if you're starting a business. Very different. If I'm talking or listening, if somebody out there is listening and they're running a 250 million turnover business, they're going to be just going, yeah, this is bollocks. But actually, some of it is. But if you're starting a business or want to, you've got to be different and counterintuitive. And Alchemy will give you the moral fiber to go and do that. And the other answer is read something completely different from what you do normally, and maybe don't read anything, maybe just do something you're not used to doing and be inspired by difference.
Oh, I like both those answers. And yeah, anything...
I know, that's what I said.
They're really good. But like anything by Rory Sutherland is pretty cool. I'm speaking at an event, which will have happened by the time this podcast goes out, where on the bill is Catherine Ryan, Stephen Bartlett and Rory Sutherland, and I'm more intimidated by Rory Sutherland than the other two because he's so amazing.
Oh, you shouldn't be.
He's just amazing.
He is amazing.
Yeah.
He's such a sweet.
Anyway, sorry everybody, that's me going off on a tangent. Traffic top tip now. Which marketing method do you either prize above all others or think doesn't get the press it deserves?
We prize email above all other channels. The problem is we've got to get them first, and that's one of the major problems we think about in the business. Is how do we acquire email? And our acquisition strategy is actually literally the headline on my whiteboard in front of me right now. And I think the channel that doesn't get a good enough press is trust. Because if you don't have trust, you'll never do well. That's not a channel. I'm just being sneaky.
You're being sneaky, but that's two very good answers. And I have to say, with your business model, I'd have been very surprised if you weren't very into email, because, I mean, I'm going to divert here, but I assume you spend a lot of work emailing customers between the point at which they purchase or order and the point at which they arrive. If there's 15 months in between,
No, we don't. And this is so right. So you think that what we do is brilliant, right? And like everyone does from the outside. And I think that what we do is absolute bollocks. And the reason is, and I think we are currently, I'm totally serious. I'm not saying it for effect. I don't think we're even doing 10 or 15% of what we're capable of doing for this level of business. So we've just hired Joe in e-commerce. So website, about to build a new website. We've just about to hire 2 creative people to basically I do all the creative of the business, which is absolute lunacy. And it's been killing me and killing the business, not killing the business, but hurting the business, because I want to run the business and have the big ideas, the game changing stuff. And I write all the copy and don't most of the imagery, which is ludicrous. So we've got 2 people about to start on that. And then we're about to employ a customer experience person. We're going to start doing events, acquisition, all kinds of stuff. So we're going from 6 to 10 people quite quickly, which is also a tiny number of staff for our size business. We're understaffed. But no, we're not doing anything near what we should be doing and we want to do in marketing. And it frustrates the hell out of me. And what we should be doing is showing the incredible lengths that we go to throughout the process of design and manufacturing to create jackets that people think are genuinely amazing. And to show people, look, there's your fabric, it's being cut. Look, there's the zips being sewn in, all that stuff. And it drives me crazy every single day we don't do that. Because, hey, just like everyone else, especially if they recognize those growing pains, nobody's doing it right all the time. We're all trying to get better. And we're all frustrated by the things we can't get a hold of.
I'm so glad I asked that extra question. Okay, let's get me back on track. Tool top tip, maybe a collaboration tool, a social media plugin, a phone app, or just a way of working. Is there a cool little tool you use that makes you and your team more efficient from day to day?
I'm not very techie, and noise cancelling headphones have changed my life and therefore everyone else's. I've also moved. This is an interesting problem I could do an own podcast on. So when I got diagnosed neurodiverse a couple of years ago, I pretty much prescribed myself my own office space, and my level of productivity, along with medication, noise cancelling headphones, all these other bits and pieces, has skyrocketed, which has also meant that I'm a much happier person. But I'm not the figurehead, which I recognise I now need to be again in the business. And so we're going to start bringing me back into the business, like actually in the business more in front of people. But at the same time, I find that enormously distracting. So do they, because I'm weird. When I'm in front of people, I talk too much. And when I'm not, I don't talk at all. So I think that the noise cancelling headphones are a very personal thing, and it's not an app or a piece of tech. And you're the last person you should ever ask about good tech, because I'm a clueless idiot.
But I like what you share, though. I think those are some really, really good insights. Okay, the carbon top tip. What's your favourite way to reduce the carbon footprint of an e-commerce business?
Stop selling shit.
It is that simple, isn't it? I mean, it's...
No, please don't sell rubbish. Like I'm not. It's quite easy to misinterpret me because I do splash around the different areas of human conversation, but I'm absolutely serious. Please don't make rubbish. Please don't help people make rubbish. You know, I'm very, very passionate about that. I can't bear things that don't work anyway, but the fact that it gets put in landfills, you know, makes me very, very mad indeed. And actually, it doesn't make business sense anyway. And actually, the way that consumers are going, certainly for a chunk of the market, let's call it the upper middle class, whatever you want to define it as markets, people want to spend more money on fewer things they care about. And thankfully, we're in that market. And thank to God that people want that, because it makes me feel good and it actually makes my business work. And I can feel that even though I sell stuff, at least it's better stuff. And by the way, on sustainability, I really hate greenwashing, like we all should, but we don't have sustainability on our website. And that's not because we don't care. It's because I think it's basic. You don't punch someone in the face and say to the world, by the way, we don't punch people in the face. You just don't punch people in the face. So don't be unsustainable.
But it is the fundamental way of reducing the carbon footprint of an e-commerce store is to not sell products customers don't want and shouldn't want. Whether that's one item in your range that you shouldn't be making, or whether that actually your entire business should pivot to something else. We can talk about planting trees, we can talk about putting solar panels on things, we can talk about taking our packaging to cardboard instead of plastic, all of which are not bad things to do. But fundamentally, if you look at the product you're selling and think, and I'm getting ranty now, and you look at the product you're selling and you think, this is pointless. This is a waste of my time. It's the waste of my energy. It's a waste of the product that's gone into it. Then it is time to do something else.
Unfortunately, we're at a branch in the market, in terms of clothing anyway. You've either got massive volumes of ludicrously, terrifyingly cheap stuff. I literally don't even know how it gets made. And that's stuffing the planet and people in the process. And I don't want anything to do with it. Thank God I don't have to. But that's the advantage, even though it's really hard to build your own business, the advantage of setting out your stall early and deciding what you want to do. But if you're in a career in that world, if you have you can make that choice and you can develop that career in the right direction, is go and work for people you feel good about, not for people that make you kind of wince at night when you're at home. Because I've worked for those people, and it's one of the reasons I became an entrepreneur, because I just thought, I can't work in the place I want to work in, so I'm going to have to create it. And I think the market's going that way anyway. And also fundamentally, because eventually this whole discounting massive volume thing is just going to implode. It just has to. God, I hope it does. Probably because the whole planet will catch fire or something. But if it does change and we move to quality, the people who are already ahead in that area will carry on doing better. And the people who try and change won't be able to.
Nick, thank you so much for all your insights today. Before we say goodbye, could you please let the listeners know where they can find you and your business on the web and social media, please?
Of course, and I'm much nicer in real life and on social media. I just got a little bit carried away there. FRAHMjacket.com, FRAHM. We only sell there. We're also on @FRAHMjacket for social media. Instagram's probably the best one. And if you sign up to our emails, it's not just me ranting. There's some interesting stuff.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick. It has been a super pleasure getting you here on the podcast. And thank you so much for sharing so much great insight. We really do appreciate it.
And thanks for the very good preparation and good questions for tolerating me so nicely.
So how to sum up that chat with Nick? First off, apologies everyone for not having got Nick on the show sooner, because I think he's truly inspiring. He really knows his stuff. He talks about it in a really interesting way, and I think he's got his finger on a pulse, a good pulse in our space. So what would I take away from our chat was, I think there's the pre-order piece. There's a lot of good reasons to be doing it. Being able to tap in to the FOMO piece is a big one. It does put you completely in control of your financials. You know, you're not having to do that 70% discount end of line sale nightmare stuff, which means all your marketing can be focused on the story you want to. But I thought he did a really good job of outlining the key things you must get right if you're going to go down that route around brilliant product, committing to it wholeheartedly. I think there is that option for limited edition ranges, short-term pieces that you could add on to your part, but it's a tricky one. And the way he's doing it, can't see them doing any other channels other than D2C. No marketplaces, no physical stores, no wholesaling. But then that is probably fits with a lot of the other things he's trying to get out of the business and the objectives he's got. So it's a very different way of running it. It can be hugely, hugely powerful. And then, you know, the thing of he didn't know about it, so he went and learned about it. And the decision, like actually looking at what's happening in the marketplace, we need to create our own cash. We need to become profitable. Let's pause our growth and work out how we do that and how we build that. Super fascinating guy. I hope to be catching up with him again soon. Maybe we'll record it for all of you guys again. You can get our notes about this episode, including those top tips and the links to things we mentioned, by heading over to ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast. Or you can use our direct to episode short links. Just put ecmp.info/ the number of this episode into the URL bar, and you'll be redirected straight to the correct page. When you get to the website, you can also add yourself to our email list so you don't miss out on any of the other things I share to help you improve your business. And if you liked this episode, why not check out our episode with Dixon Flannel from a couple of years ago, who are deep into the limited edition sphere. They're all about pre-orders, but they also sell a little bit of stock afterwards as well. So that would be an interesting one to listen to. So Dixon Flannel, go and have a search back through the feed for that one. And if you want more on apparel and fashion, then ecmp.info/fashion will take you to the page of the website where we list all our fashion interviews. Thank you so much for tuning into this and every episode of the E-commerce Master Plan podcast. I hope you have a great week, and don't forget to keep optimizing.
Thank you for listening to the E-commerce Master Plan podcast. Find out more at ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast.
It's time to download our 500 top tips to make your e-commerce business more profitable ebook. Go to ecmp.info/ebook now.